Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Hello learners, welcome to today's lesson. We are continuing with mitosis, that is the stages of mitosis. My name is Stephen Kariungi, and we are going to look at metaphase. So this is the third stage, having looked at interphase and prophase. Now, we want to ask ourselves, what activities happen at metaphase? But I would want us to just revert a bit on what happens during prophase. We saw that during prophase is when the chromosomes are visible as a pair of chromatids. It is also the stage where the nuclear membrane has started disappearing, and is also the stage where the spindle fibers have started forming. So now, at this point, at metaphase, the nuclear membrane is completely disappeared, or has completely disappeared. Number two, the spindle fibers lengthen and reach their maximum. The spindle fibers lengthen and reach their maximum. And number three, the chromosomes are aligned at the equator or the center of the spindle fibers. We shall see that via an illustration. So we can say that the activities that occur at metaphase, one is that the nuclear membrane has fully disappeared. Two, the spindle fibers, which started forming in the previous stage, reach their maximum length. And number three, and the most important, is that chromosomes are aligned. At the equator. Of the spindle fibers. So when you observe point number three, that the chromosomes are aligned at the equator of the spindle fibers, then automatically you know that that particular stage is metaphase. And it looks like this. We have a cell. So those activities have happened. The nuclear membrane is no longer there. We cannot see it. The spindle fibers have attained their maximum length. And then finally, the chromosomes are aligned at the equator of the spindle. So you can see that the chromosomes are aligned at the equator or the center of the spindle fibers. Now, once they are aligned at the center or at the equator, then they are ready to start moving. They are ready to start moving, and that's what takes us now to the next stage, which is Anaphase. And one of the activities that occur during Anaphase is the separation of sister chromatids at the centromere. So at the centromere, the chromatids separate and they migrate to the opposite poles. So some of the chromatids will go to this pole here, and the others will go to this other pole here. So you are saying that there is separation of sister chromatids which migrate to opposite poles. They start migrating now to the opposite pole. So at that point, they have separated and then they migrate to the opposite poles. The other thing that happens is that the spindle fibers, which we can also label here, the spindle fiber is there. So the spindle fibers shorten. Pulling the chromatids towards the poles. So by the shortening of the spindle fibers, they pull the chromatids, making them to separate and move towards the poles, or towards opposite poles. And towards the end of anaphase, the cell membrane start to constrict. The cell membrane start to constrict in preparation for division. Start to constrict. So we are going to have an illustration of the same. So we have a cell that is at anaphase. So we can see that something to note just before we get to the diagram, something to note is that as the sister chromatids move to the opposite poles, they move with the centromere leading. So it's good to make an addition here with the centromere leading. It is the centromere that leads that movement. So that's what you can see from here. Then the spindle fibers have shortened, pulling the chromatids towards the poles. So you can see that at this point they have separated. They are no longer at the equator of the spindle. And also you find that the cell membrane starts to constrict in preparation for the division. So you can show that chromatids reaching the poles. You can be able to see that. We can be able to also see the shortening of spindle fibers, and that is that. So this is actually what is happening at anaphase, as illustrated from that diagram. Then the last stage, which is now telophase, the final stage. The activities that happen at this stage is that chromatids have reached the poles and nuclear membrane forms around each set of chromatids. And when the nuclear membrane form around each set of chromatids, now the chromatids become chromosomes. The chromatids now become chromosomes. There is nucleolus reappears, it had disappeared. And then finally, the cytoplasm divides, forming two daughter cells. So those are the activities. The chromatids have reached the poles at telophase. At anaphase, they were moving towards the poles. Now they have reached. Then a nuclear membrane forms around each set. Then the nucleolus will reappear. And then finally the cytoplasm will divide, giving rise to two daughter cells. So the diagram for that so this is telophase, and what we can see from the diagram is that the nucleolus reappears, the nuclear membrane has formed, we can see the division of the cytoplasm, and then finally the chromatids become chromosomes. So that is actually what happens in the process of cell division. We have started with metaphase, where we say that the chromosomes are aligned at the equator of the spindle fibers through the lengthening of the spindle fibers. At this point, we have also said that the nuclear membrane is completely disappeared. The next stage we have looked at anaphase, where we have the separation of sister chromatids, which migrate to the opposite poles with the centromere leading. As you can be able to see, the centromere is the dot that is leading. The spindle fibers are shortening, and as they shorten, they pull the chromatids. And then the cell membrane, they start to constrict towards the end of anaphase. Finally, at telophase, the chromatids have reached the poles where they were headed to, and a nuclear membrane forms around each set of chromatids, and now they become chromosomes. The nucleolus reappears, it had disappeared initially, and then finally the cytoplasm divides so that we get two daughter cells being formed. So you can see that at the end of mitosis, we have formed two daughter cells. You can even indicate that these are the daughter cells that have been formed. So that explains the stages by which mitosis occurs. So we are going to have a short Assignment. So the assignment, the first question, name the activities that happen during A, metaphase, and B, anaphase. Number 2, at what stage do chromatids become chromosomes? Number 3, how many daughter cells are formed at the end of mitosis? So that is what we have learned today. So make sure you answer that assignment based on what we have learned. So thank you and see you next time.